Hello everybody and welcome back to another tutorial. Today we are going to be working on Linux servers and how to secure it. This will be done in a Debian kernel based server. So this guide is pretty much meant for anybody who's using Debian, Linux Mint if you want to make that a server, Ubuntu 18.04. If you're going to use CentOS, Red Hat, Fedora, Arch, this guide will still technically work for you. You would just have to make sure that your commands are the same as in there. For example, when we install software in Debian, we use apt for our installation, as most people who use CentOS and Red Hat will use Yum. So before you go ahead and follow this guide along, I would recommend making sure that anything that I do in here will work on your server that you're working on at the time being. Also, I do want to let everybody know that this is no way means of guaranteeing your server is 100% secure, obviously, but this is the basic fundamentals that you need to be able to actually lock your server down. A few things we're going to be going over with will be disabling root, making sure you have static IPs, how to create SSH, how to secure and encrypt your SSH using encryption keys, adding a few extra security features on there to stop DDoS attacks and brute forcing, installing Fail2Ban to again stop a DDoS and brute force, and then enabling your firewall to pretty much block everything outside of the port you're not using so that there's no random port just happen to be open. For example, if somebody came and installed something on your server that connects to the internet, you want to make sure that port is guaranteed to be blocked unless specified in your firewall, so nobody can go ahead and remote access into your system. As a bonus, I'm actually going to show you how to actually create a encryption key using Putty and PuttyGen on Windows. Even though we're using Linux servers more and more today, people are still using Windows client computers as well still. So in that case, a lot of them do not know how to create an encryption key to a Linux server. We can do it with a Windows server very easily, but maybe not a Linux server. So this video is going to actually show you how to install Putty and then how to actually make an encryption key for your Putty, and then put it right in there on the server and you're good to go. So first thing is first, I'm going to be doing this on a virtual machine like I do on all my videos. If you look up here, we have Debian 10, which is going to be our server, and I went ahead and installed Linux Mint as a client because you do need to have at least a client to test your SSH keys. I'm also doing this on a Windows laptop at the moment, so I also have Putty installed to show you what happens when you try to log in after you do the encryption keys and you lock all your settings down to show you that it does fail and everything else. And like always, everything we discuss in the actual video here will be down in the description below. Okay, so this guide that I actually went ahead and wrote, we'll go ahead and scroll through real quickly. It gives you everything you need. So we have your prerequisites, and I'm going to show you exactly all the information I'm using, and I left a spot over here for anybody who wants to follow along or anybody who wants to use this guide to be able to type in your actual own information here, so that when you're doing the guide you know what to split. Like for instance, every time you see the word admin, you know that that's the root name that you're going to create. Unless you chose admin, then you can. My root password will be password for the video. I do not recommend anybody to use this as your actual admin password. That is ridiculous. But I don't feel like making a really a detailed encrypted password for no reason. Then as we say down here, if you don't have Putty, I actually have links to the 64-bit and the 32-bit Putty, which will give you PuttyGen and all the other programs you need to be able to create your new encryption key on Windows. And then basically each step will show you exactly as we're going to go through. So for example, step 1, we're going to show you how to disable root. And as you can see here, the way I have the guide set up is this is what your terminal is going to look like. So mine would be root at Debian, and then this right here will be the commands that you're going to type in. So anything that you see in light blue is the command you're going to write. Now you can see here mine, I added admin. So in the case, if you decided to switch up a name and choose a different name, obviously everything here that says admin will be changed to something different. Then we go on to step 2, which is creating a static IP using command line, but I also threw in an extra for the desktop GUI because I am using the GUI, so it makes it a little bit easier. So I quickly wrote out a guide showing, obviously pictures on how to actually set up your command line your network interface through the desktop. The next thing we have is static your network through the command line in Debian. So I show you how to figure out your IP address, your Ethernet name, and pretty much walk you straight through on how to go ahead and set everything up. Here's a before and after picture, pinging to make sure everything is working. And then I threw in an extra Ubuntu 18.04 because if you are going to do this on Ubuntu, 18.04 started using NetPlan, which became more of a nightmare, I feel. So anybody who's actually doing this and they're actually doing this on their Ubuntu 18.04 server, you're not going to be able to do what I did up here. So I went ahead and actually showed you the commands on how to go ahead and set up your network configuration. Okay. And then after that, we get into our SSH encryption keys and how to make that. And then we get into extra security features to sit there and stop, DDoS attacks and no spoof. Installing Fail2Ban, installing your firewall or configuring your firewall if you already have it installed. And then how to do your encryption with Putty. So a lot of it is very straightforward. This guide is available for download in the description below. So enough talking. Let's go ahead and get this going because that's the reason why you're here.